Welcome to my YouTube channel. The Gala Night. Emily Carter's life had always been defined by simplicity and struggle. Raised by a single mother who worked double shifts as a nurse, she had grown up learning the value of hard work. At 23, Emily was juggling 2 jobs to pay for her tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn. She didn't have the time or luxury to dream of glamour, wealth, or love. That's why the invitation to work at the Knight Foundation's annual charity gala felt surreal. Her best friend, Lila, had begged her to take the waitressing shift, claiming it paid triple the usual rate. Emily had reluctantly agreed. The gala was being held at the Sterling, one of Manhattan's most exclusive hotels. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and the hall glittered with gold and silver as New York's elite mingled in tuxedos and designer gowns. Emily adjusted her black and white uniform and tightened her ponytail, reminding herself to stay invisible. But fate had other plans. As she carried a tray of champagne flutes through the crowd, her heel caught on the edge of the luxurious Persian rug. The tray tilted, sending the glasses wobbling dangerously. Emily gasped, bracing for disaster. But before disaster struck, a strong hand caught the tray. "Careful," a deep voice murmured. Emily's breath caught. She looked up and froze. Alexander Knight. The man was legend, a billionaire CEO, heir to the Knight Enterprises empire, and a figure whose name alone carried weight in financial and social circles. He stood tall, his broad shoulders filling out a custom-tailored black tuxedo. His piercing grey eyes, cold yet magnetic, held her in place. His chiseled jawline and perfectly styled dark hair made him look like he had stepped out of a magazine cover. Emily swallowed hard, heat rising to her cheeks. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean." Alexander's lips curved in a faint, unreadable smile. "No harm done. Just watch your step. Not everyone here would be as forgiving." Emily managed a stiff nod, her heart thundering in her chest. As the night went on, she tried to focus on her work, but she couldn't help noticing Alexander's gaze on her, sharp, curious, lingering. Each time their eyes met, something unspoken passed between them, a tension that made her stomach flutter. By the end of the night, rain poured outside, drenching the city in silver sheets. Emily stepped out of the hotel, hugging her thin jacket around herself as she searched for a cab. A sleek black car pulled up beside her. The tinted window rolled down. "Alexander, you'll catch a cold out here," he said smoothly. "Allow me to give you a ride." Emily hesitated. This was dangerous. He was a man from a different world. She was just a waitress who barely scraped by. But the intensity in his gaze drew her in. Against her better judgment, she slid into the car. That night blurred into something she would never forget. One glass of wine turned into another. One conversation turned into. Emily hesitated. This was the kind of man who belonged to a different world, rich, powerful, and untouchable. But something about his gaze disarmed her. Against her better judgment, she slid into the leather seat beside him. That night blurred into passion, an irresistible storm that neither of them could explain. One drink turned into 2. One glance turned into lingering touches, and soon, Emily found herself in his penthouse suite overlooking the glittering city lights. It was supposed to be just one night. A mistake. A dream. Something she would never speak of again. But fate had other plans. Chapter 2. 2 lines on a test. A month later, Emily sat in her tiny apartment bathroom, staring at the white plastic stick in her trembling hands. 2 lines. Her knees gave out, and she sank onto the cold tiles, heart racing. She was pregnant. Her mind reeled back to that night with Alexander, the way his lips had claimed hers with urgency, the way she had surrendered completely to the magnetic pull between them. And now, this. Panic clawed at her chest. She couldn't raise a child. She could barely pay her rent. And how could she tell Alexander Knight, of all people? He wasn't the type to settle down. He wasn't the type to even remember her. To him, she was just a nameless girl he had spent a night with. Tears burned her eyes as she pressed a hand to her flat stomach. "What am I going to do?" she whispered. But no matter how scared she felt, she knew one thing. She couldn't get rid of the baby. This child, innocent and unasked for, was hers. And she would love it with everything she had. What Emily didn't know, however, was that she was carrying not one life inside her, but 2. Chapter 3. Twins. 9 months later, Emily's screams filled the hospital room. Hours of labor left her exhausted, drenched in sweat, But when she finally heard the cries of her babies, a flood of emotions washed over her. "Congratulations," the nurse said softly, placing 2 tiny bundles into her arms. A boy and a girl. Emily's eyes widened. Twins. She stared at their tiny faces, one with Alexander's piercing grey eyes, the other with her own gentle hazel. Tears spilled freely down her cheeks. She hadn't just been given one miracle. She had been given 2. But as she held her children close, Emily knew one thing for certain. Alexander Knight could never find out. Chapter 4. 5 years later. The years passed quickly. Life wasn't easy. Emily worked multiple jobs, scraping by just enough to provide for her children. But every time she looked into their eyes, she felt stronger. Her son, Ethan, was bold and curious, with Alexander's sharp features and stubbornness. Her daughter, Ella, was gentle and thoughtful, always looking out for her brother. Together, they were her entire world. One evening, after putting them to bed, Emily sat by the window, exhaustion weighing heavily on her shoulders. She thought of Alexander sometimes, wondering what he would say. 5 years later. Life was anything but easy, but Emily managed. She worked 2 jobs, one as a kindergarten assistant, another at a bakery, to provide for Ethan and Ella. Her tiny apartment was always noisy with laughter, drawings taped to the walls, and toys scattered across the floor. Ethan was bold and mischievous, always getting into trouble. Ella was gentle and wise beyond her years, often smoothing things over with her brother. Together, they were Emily's entire world. She told them stories every night before bed, never letting them feel the absence of a father. But the truth gnawed at her. Sometimes, when she looked into Ethan's grey eyes, the same stormy eyes as Alexander, she wondered if she had made the right choice. That question was about to be answered. Chapter 5. The Reunion. It happened on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Emily had taken a catering job at a corporate event downtown. Balancing a tray of hors d'oeuvres, she navigated the crowded hall until she froze. Standing on the stage, delivering a speech with effortless authority, was Alexander Knight. Her heart stopped. 5 years had passed, but he looked the same, powerful, commanding, breathtakingly handsome. As the crowd clapped, his eyes scanned the room. For a moment, their gazes locked. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by something deeper. After the event, Emily tried to slip away unnoticed, but a firm voice stopped her. Emily Carter. She turned slowly. Alexander stood there, his piercing gaze fixed on her. "You disappeared," he said softly, accusation lacing his tone. "No number. No goodbye. Nothing." Emily's throat tightened. It was better that way. His eyes narrowed. Better for who? Before she could answer, a small voice called from behind. "Mommy." Ethan and Ella ran up to her, their tiny hands clutching her skirt. Alexander's gaze dropped to them, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. 2 pairs of familiar eyes, one grey, one hazel, looked back at him. The world seemed to stop. Chapter 6. The Confrontation. "Emily," Alexander said, his voice dangerously low. "Are they mine?" Emily's chest tightened. She had dreaded this moment for years. "It doesn't matter. They are my children." His jaw clenched. "Don't lie to me." "Alexander, please." 5 years, Emily," he interrupted coldly. 5 years you kept my children from me." Tears stung her eyes. "I was protecting them. You live in a world of power and enemies. I couldn't risk them being used, being hurt. You had no right to make that choice alone." His voice thundered, drawing curious stares. Emily's hands trembled as she held the twins close. "Please, don't take them from me." Alexander's expression softened for the first time as he looked at Ethan and Ella. His children. His blood. Something shifted inside him, something he had never felt before, an ache, a longing. "I won't take them," he said finally, voice rough. "But I will be part of their lives. WH.